You gotta pound me a lot to get any sort of cuts on this fucking face. So yeah, these scars are not from fighting, you know. These scars are from fighting. Beaten by my dad. He tied us up a lot. 13, 14, started getting caught doing car robberies, and we were doing home invasions. We were doing a lot of stuff at young ages. Like, I enjoyed jail. I thought jail was fine because at least I got fed 3 times, you know, you didn't get hurt. Got offered money to take a dive was here in Australia. It was actually $3 million. Wow. But at the time when they offered me that money, this guy trying to buy me, what the fuck? My first thought was, this guy's trying to put me in jail. And when I first met Francis, he's the one that said to me, he's like this, I want to fight you, Mark. And I said, sure.
With Pride, did you know that there was anything like Yakuza thing?
He probably had like a whole table full of like stacks of bills, man. You know, he asked me if I wanted to get paid cash. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to take 450,000 euros? What am I won the world title at 27. 22 years after that winning the world title, I'll probably be 50 when I compete again in bare enough, which is fucking amazing.
There's like rumors that you might even fight like Jake Paul as well. Is that right?
This always shocks me, but only 10% of the people that regularly listen to the show are actually subscribed. So before we begin, can I please ask for a quick favor? If you enjoy the show and what we do here, the best and totally free way to support us is just by hitting that subscribe button. And my commitment to you is that I'll bring you the best possible guests and the biggest stories every single week. Thank you.
You had a really rough upbringing, but I think that would have helped so much in sort of being a really resilient fighter that could take damage and could swing back really, really hard and stop people, you know?
When you're getting hurt as a youth, you only go to the only place you can go. If you're tied up and things, you can only go into your mind and yourself. You can't really escape. As many times as I try to, I still sometimes get caught, you get tied up and you can't go anywhere. So you have to just escape inside yourself. And that's how you dealt with it. Well, that's how I dealt with it a lot of times. So, but because of the roughness of the childhood, it's made me so resilient and mentally able to take, affliction, pain, you know. So it was like I shouldn't say it was like my best friend, but when it's always,
it is for
like,
fighting.
Fighting.
I mean,
especially with kickboxing and stuff, you know, you can, it's normal, to be honest.
You said that you kind of felt like you had more safety and like felt better like on the streets, so like how did that start, where you're kind of like hanging out doing things and then eventually kind of moving in towards finding combat sports?
Well, I mean, we were, you know, as a youth growing up, I started venturing out. Like I said, I was homeless at 8 for 2 weeks. I was scared. It was a harsh time. We were always getting beaten by my dad. He was a piece of crap. I mean, he used everything, and it wasn't just normal beatings. When I got into the system, I think I was like 13, 14, started getting caught doing car robberies, and we were doing home invasions. We were doing a lot of stuff at young ages, and then getting caught and putting through the system, and then coming out of jail, I think, and finally realizing, you know, I'm not really, I'm just angry at the world these days. It was like an adventure going up, even though it wasn't right what we were doing, you know, robbing cars and doing all this other, you know, little shit. It was like a feeling of freedom for me, to be honest. And it wasn't a worry about, you know, being hurt outside, because it was always, you know, you go home and there'd be nothing to fucking eat. There'd be hardly anything. Like, I could have been a real menace to society, like a real menace, doing bad things and continue to do worse. Like, I enjoyed jail as a youth. I thought jail was fine because at least I got fed 3 times. You didn't get hurt. You know, you're just with a lot of people, other people that were in jail that were lost also like you, that made some, you know, wrong decisions.
So when did you start to see combat sports as an option? I know that you were having some fights like on the streets and whatnot. Was that in Auckland or was that actually in Sydney?
It was in Auckland, and in the end, it was just actually going out and getting into trouble. It wasn't an organized thing. It was just going out to clubs, and then your crew don't like that crew, or some stupid shit will happen, and then you'll be fighting and beefing. So it's nothing was organized, and the longest it'll probably go is like, what, 30 seconds, a minute, you know. That was only, you know, that was before I was actually a pro fighter. I was actually doing dumb shit like that all the time. Got a lot of trophies on my hands, you know, even before I was a fighter, you know, for that sort of jazz, which is not good, which is not right. So
And then you had like a fight at a nightclub, and that's when you met your first trainer. Is that right?
Yeah. So, like I said, we're out the normal weekend where we just finished mugging some people.
Yeah.
My other mate was wearing his jacket at the club, which, I shouldn't laugh, and it's wrong. So he was wearing it, and these four guys, and I walked him outside, and I asked one of the boys, I said, "Where's blah 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 gone?"
Yeah.
I shouldn't say his name, but he knows who he is. But I've said it a minute. And he said, "Oh, he's going out with these four guys." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I went to help him. The place is called DTM's, and they were kicking the shit out of him in the corridor. So I ran over to help him. I ended up sitting right next to him, and they were kicking the shit out of both of us. But I had a real fucking hair trigger temper at the time, and I was,
Yeah.
actually I had abs as well. And these guys were standing outside the nightclub, and they were just taunting us with the cops were there.
Yeah.
And I was irate, so I just went over and clocked one of them. A big fight broke out. I hit one of the other guys there under the cop car.
Under the cop car?
Everyone's, because the cops were there already, and these guys they thought that we weren't going to do anything about it, but I don't know about them, but I was going to do something about it, and that's how it ensued. And then Sam, who's some guy, like I said, I was in the rumble in the ruckus, and Sam grabbed me and pulled me. I didn't know who it was. It pulled me into hiding. He said, I looked at him, and then he was a Rastafari man. He was a good dude. He said, "Just wait here," and I was in the toilet, so I just waited there, and everything blew over. I ended up, he came back in and said, "Look, man, would you be keen on doing a Muay Thai fight?" And I said, "Yeah, man." I thought I owed him because he saved me from being arrested. So
Yeah.
I think the following week I was in that same club fighting Muay Thai for the first time. So that's how my journey started as a prize fighter. And it wasn't, he just said, "Here's some beers for you and your boys." And that was it. So it wasn't even, that's not what my life, because back then K1 wasn't about Muay Thai, was just starting in New Zealand and only boxing. So it wasn't, there wasn't no end game there. So I didn't want to be a fighter in that sense. It was just living my journey of life in that aspect. Guys like Ray Seffel and Jason Suddy, Jason, all these guys from who I started were already competing in Muay Thai prior, but I didn't realize until after I came into that fighting scene who they were, who the big dogs were, and those were the big dogs of NZ. Or they were just filming us, and they were cleaning up everyone, Eddie the Heat, all from Lolo Hemuli's camp. Balmoral Liga, which is crazy. Like I said, the only person that was doing anything globally was David Tor. He was the only one cleaning up community house everywhere in boxing. So, yeah.
Like, had you ever even heard of like Muay Thai really before you had your first Muay Thai fight?
No, I didn't hear. I was just like I said, I didn't know what the fuck. I was like, when they said Muay Thai, I'm like, what the fuck is that? Is that some sort of gay game or something? I don't know what the fuck it was. He was like, because I found it kind of weird, but then it was one of my mate Bill's. Bill was it was his uncle Sam. They're both Cook Islanders, and he's like, "No, it's a fight sport." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, why not?" I don't know what I was getting into, but I said, "Sure." That young and dumb think you're tough. Whatever. He said, "Yeah, why not?" And you know what? He said, "Come down to 4th Street to his gym, and join the team training," and then that's what I did. So I only I didn't have a car. My mate Rob took me down to a couple of trainings, and that's all I did. I thought it was quite cool because gave me some shorts with some weird writing on it.
Yeah.
And I used to run around South Auckland. I was like, "Yeah, I'm cool." Cool as, get some shorts with some foreign. It was actually Thai writing. I don't know. It could have said dickhead on the whole fucking front, but but yeah.
Okay. Did you know the rules going into your first fight?
Well, I mean, to be honest, the rules are pretty much like I thought, like any rule: hit him, hurt him, and that's it. There was no, for me, there was no. I didn't care about rules. It was just all I got to do was hit that guy and hurt that guy until he doesn't move again. That's all. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something I told. That's what I knew. I was like, I got to kick him, punch him, do whatever I can so he doesn't fucking keep coming. But like I
Yeah.
said, the first kick I had, he was like way bigger guy than me. And I kicked him for the first time. Well, I think he kicked me and I was like, damn, fuck, that fucking hurt. I was like this, it's like virgin legs or something.
Yeah. The first time I ever got kicked in the leg, I didn't really understand it. Like I thought, oh yeah, you just get kicked in the leg, whatever. But then a little bit later, you're like, oh wow, this, like, you can't like walk or move on it. You know what I mean? Like I haven't done any professional fighting, just like sparring and whatnot. I was like, holy shit, this hurts so much.
Yeah,
so
I was
imagine.
like, as soon as I got kicked or I kicked him, I think it was, I was like automatic back to my, I know this feeling. I know exactly this feeling. This is the normal feeling that I get all the time. So pretty much, sweet. Then it was this, it was affliction. I said, I know that's my buddy again coming back.
Yeah.
But it was not my dad. It was someone else trying to do it. I said, oh yeah.
So then, Mark, how long did it take you to sort of get from like your first fight you went straight pro, right? There was no amateur.
I fought Muay Thai until I went to Australia, and then I turned because I was training at Mundine's gym, and I actually got turned pro by Barry Raff. He was a crooked promoter. He turns me pro because I was fighting one of his other guys. I was still smoking and drinking. Like I said, I had no clue what was going on. I just said, oh yeah, sure. You understand, bro? But I was against one of his fighters called John the Digger Whiteborn, and I lost that fight. I came straight from the bar into the ring, and I was like, what's
really?
up? I had no clue because it was a different discipline altogether, man.
Yeah. When did you start to, after that fight, did you have some more pro bouts or?
It was all, I started doing K1.
Okay.
I was kickboxing all over the joint. I was just filling in for everyone. Then I got the first taste of something to train for was K1, the Oceanas. And then I went into that. I started taking it seriously, training.
Yeah. How old were you?
Smoking. I was 24 or 25.
24,
because in that 2 years I trained, I'd won the Oceania twice. And then that year I won the Oceania, the Worlds when I was 27. Yeah. So I went from fighting in a 1,000-seater stadium in the Melbourne Casino, the Crown, to fighting in 40,000 venue in Japan. So I went from the small venue to the big time. So I really realized that from my first fight in Japan against Jerome Lebana, I got stage fright for the first time ever.
You went and just fought all the biggest legends straight away. Like there was no gimme fights, and like when I look at your pro record when you're going into Japan, you're just fighting the best straight off the bat. And these guys, they would have like huge amateur careers, pro careers coming into fighting into those tournaments, right?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, like I said, a life of resilience and affliction. Like I said, God put me here to fight, and that's, me fighting those guys. I didn't realize, until I actually went through fighting with Jerome, I realized I'm part of this elite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm part of this elite, and there's no way the top table. I'm sitting here. I'm going to kick some of these fools off there. So, and then it was at the end of the day, the only person that would beat me is me. And that's because I didn't train properly. So, it took a few different adjustments. But in the end of the day, I'm sitting at the top table with the best of these fighters in the world. Because that's my mindset was I'm the best fighter ever.
Yeah.
Regardless of how they saw me,
Yeah. Well, I think so as well. Like, I think you're the only one from like Australia, New Zealand, that ever won like the K1 World Championship,
I'm the only, especially the heavyweight title. At the end of that, I felt like I said, God has blessed me to be a part of the fighting elite. In these different genres, because it's because that's how things went for life. So,
and back in the day, like I know I had to ask this with K1 and Pride. Like I had Enson Inoue on the podcast, and he was telling me that all in the Pride contracts it said we're not going to test for steroids at all. Did you know anything about that back then or hear anything from the other fighters?
Well, the thing is that I didn't, me being green about it, I didn't know, this from this. I didn't know, and it wasn't, all they said, all I knew was what they said to me is, do you want to fight? And I said, that's it. I didn't really realize the politics about the whole thing is about steroids until I actually came into Pride. And I asked them the first time I went into the meeting with these guys, I was like, "Oh, what about steroids?" They all just fucking laughed at me, like a whole room full of suited Japanese businessmen just laughing, and I was in there. What the fuck he's laughing about? But like I said, I didn't organize my contracts. It was management at the time that did it. All I was doing was becoming from zero amateur to the best fighters in the world that I've seen on videotapes, and I'm thinking, and I'm here now. Yeah, I'm here now, and I'm okay. I didn't know the ins and outs about this and that. I'm just in there fighting. No one gave a good advice about any. I mean, it was kind of hard.
Yeah. Did you have a local manager or just like a manager back home?
Yeah, it was a guy. I think it was Zen that started managing me in the start for K1. Okay, actually, I think it might have been Happy or Lucy. It was actually those guys. It was Happy that was doing the management. Tarek Solek that did shows down in Melbourne. He became part of my management also because you signed an agreement to go through with the Oceania fighters.
Yeah.
Anyone that won there had to be part of his management. So, like I said, it was steroids and back in those days, it was something that they probably did all the time. And at the end of the day, it's like the only time I saw when I went into Pride and I asked them about it, and they just laughed about it. So, like I said, you learn these things as you go along in the world, and especially with fighting. And then as you get up higher, then you realize, it's just a game of inches, because everyone up here is fucking elite. Everyone up here is good. Everyone up here is big. These are heavyweights, and it comes down to just the little bits and pieces
little
of
advantages. Yeah.
So these guys that started using all these steroids and things, they want these advantages, So me being green, I'm just coming in, like I said, I'm way better than these motherfuckers anyway. So that I got a God-given talent, and if they have to cheat to be up here, man.
Yeah. But this is something that's always been with you, Mark. You've always been honest about this specifically, but also that like you've never been like a cheater or used anything at all. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty amazing because considering like the people you fought, so many of them have been caught for steroids, plus the Pride era, which was like do whatever you want, really. So and you fought basically them all.
Yeah, it's well, like I said, I'm in a lawsuit about this sort of jazz. It's a hard thing to sit there and think about it, but it's been 30-something years now, and 22, I think, or 23 as a prize fighter, to be honest, So I mean, like I said, I've got a couple of injuries. I've got 16 screws.
16 screws
in my hand because of a cheetah. A couple in my leg. 2-piece reconstructions, but
is that from the silver fight?
Yeah,
Bigfoot silver fight. Yeah.
Yep. And all that stuff when they cheated Mars the fight, but like I said, through those eras of times, I was green about the whole scenario. I'm not gonna continue to go through. Not saying anything. I went through a long time. I mean, Pride didn't test. I don't think they tested me a few times, but
they did. They actually did test you.
Yeah, of course they tested me.
Okay.
And in UFC tested a lot, but Pride didn't say they had the best testing policies in the world.
Yeah.
UFC did. So as they went along, more people got caught doing steroids, and then every time I'd ask them to do something with the UFC, I'd ask them, I said, are you gonna do something about it? Oh, that's not our position to do something about it. It's up to USADA or whatever. And as you go, like I said, as you go along, I just had enough when I ended up, I think the straw was, because the last time I asked them was this Bigfoot fight. Because I got nearly a year off, I think it was, because I couldn't fight again, because I had a surgery in my hand.
Yeah, what a fight that was.
And I saw Bigfoot. He got 9 months suspension, and he still fought before I could come back and make money. So that really triggered me and upset me. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the Lesnar fight.
Yeah.
Like I said, I keep telling them about doing something about it. They wouldn't do something about it. and all I asked was a clause in the contract. So when that happened, I just said, okay, if you're not going to do something about it, I have to. And what I'm doing about it is trying to change all contact sport. It's not just fighting; it's all contact sport. So and that's the whole issue about changing sports, especially through steroids and stuff. Because at the end of the day, as a fighter, I feel it's premeditated murder. And if they could kill someone doing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, man, you're gonna have a whole can of worms with this sort of jazz. So,
I wanted to say, like, just to sort of wrap up on this issue, because I know it's a bit of a hot topic. I just think back to like MMA career, like some of your losses, like the only ones that were really the losses were the people that were caught. Like I think like even the Fabricio Werdum fight where you fought for the title, came out later, like he was on steroids and.
Well, bro, I mean that fight took a lot of the things they did wrong. I mean that I had to lose 21 kilograms in 3.5 weeks. That nearly took my soul, and to be cheated out of that world title because of that guy and the same thing with Brock Lesnar. They didn't even have a public weigh-in for that guy. That guy he was far bigger than I was.
So wait, there wasn't any public weigh-in for that fight?
No, I had to go on this guy. He didn't even weigh in. His weigh-in was fucking bullshit. They didn't even weigh him, and it's like, oh, he weighed the 500 grams with the limit. I was like, there's no way. He didn't even have a public weigh-in. So those guys, like I said, they've got a lot of issues coming, and and it's wrong what they've been doing, what they're doing, and they're still doing now. What's wrong what they're doing? So,
So I wanted to ask you, just going back to like the Pride days, like, did you have any grappling experience before you went into any of these MMA bouts?
I think I had like 3 weeks or 6 weeks. Pride gave me $40,000 to go train with Bas Rutten. Oh. But I just kept the money and just went and trained with Steve Oliver. So I did about 6 weeks of jiu-jitsu to start with, and I got like I said, I went from a great kick fighter, the world's best fighter, kick fighter, to going into grappling, and Steve was like about 80 kilos, bro. I walked into that place in Glen in Oliver's gym, and Steve was wrestling around with Seth. And I was like, what are these guys doing? And I was like, bro, you just stand up, bro. You can just stand. And he goes, and this is an 80-kilo guy, 88 kilos. I was, well, why don't you come and stand up, bro? I got smashed for the next 6-8 weeks. I got hammered. He was knee right in my face, my lips. He was fucking like I was getting neck cracked. Man, I was sitting there, man, this is like being like I was young again, getting abused by my dad. It was so funny. I sit here and laugh about it all because I love those guys. They're good guys, but it taught me a real lesson in humility about the different genres of sport. So that was a hard, humbling lesson for me. Not like I wasn't humble, but I was like this. I thought I can just stand up. Yeah, but bro, you can't. With grappling, there's different ways of doing things, of connecting the fucking dot like a puzzle. But oh my gosh, anyway, that's those days are over now. But it's like I said, I sit back and I smile when I look back at those days because I'm learning those things. Man, I have a massive respect for jiu-jitsu players and wrestlers because it's such a hard thing to. They go from a striking to a grappling.
Completely different world.
Completely totally different world. I mean, I was like a fucking guppy inside a Shark Tank. And these guys are, Steve was only 88 kilos or something. He was light. Yeah. But these guys were fucking hammering me around the days. But it's funny though, because every time that I'll get hammered, Steve would just be sitting there laughing. He's going, get up, fuck.
Stand up, Mark. To stand up.
But I was just tapping all the time, but because it made me laugh, bro. Because I was tapping all the time, and he said you have to tap, otherwise that'll break or that'll snap. And I said, okay. So I was pretty much going. I was playing the drums all the time. Good memories, bro. I fucking love those days. I miss those days now. I sit back and I'm 49. I sit back and miss those days of training with a good group of guys. DJ Reminisce, with the grappling is just amazing.
Yeah.
Some good memories, man. Some lifelong memories I'll never forget.
Yeah. I just can't believe that you just went into these MMA fights against people that are like black belts, wrestlers.
These were guys. I was starting like the guys I was grappling with.
Yeah.
We were just pioneering MMA in New Zealand. Like I said, training with before I was doing it. I was Jamie Tahuna and Tama Tahuna were doing it.
Yeah.
MMA. I was like, what is that shit? But then I started doing it. I got a bad taste because of another guy who was throwing fights. I got a bad taste from him seeing that this guy throwing fights going, this, and someone else telling me.
In Pride?
No, this was King of the Cage. And he was telling me this guy was throwing some of the fights. I was thinking, this motherfucker. So that's what turned me off it. But like I said, when I got offered my first offer from Pride, it was like 275,000 US, and our money, the dollar was, I was getting paid in American dollar, so it was double.
I was US as well.
Dollar. Yeah,
so
it's double. So I'd make like 250,000 a year in K1 for 6 fights, I think it was. But I'd make 1 year's earning in 1 fight in Pride.
That's huge.
So
no wonder you did
the
it.
money was, like I said, I'm a prize fighter. It was always about making that coin to start with. So, but it was I didn't realize how different that sport was.
Yeah,
how different MMA was, brother. Anyway, lifelong memories with some good people, man. Like I had guys like Reminisce used to come from DJing in the club to come help me training. That's how fucking inadequate we were. We had no one. And then this time, some other guy came along to help us. Bam, when Bam joined our team, and we started trying to build a great team for MMA. And I think it was one of the first teams that I had a group of guys that I started training with Marcelo, and all it was for MMA, just specifically for fighting MMA. Yeah.
Did you end up fighting? Not fighting. Did you end up training with Bas Rutten at all?
No, I just saw him at Pride, and he was just probably just hammering me. You go, this fucking guy. That is a good dude, but it was. I wouldn't change a thing, to be honest. Like I said, I learned so much from Steve and the guys I trained with, because we learned. The first thing I started doing was just self-defense, defense from takedown, defense from. It took a long while to click about it, until I started to realize I went from here in real time the fight to taking a top in view like a drone and seeing my positioning with different stuff. So
How long did they say, oh, will you fight MMA in Pride, to how much training to like your first MMA fight was there?
They gave me a certain time. I think I had like 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Okay.
8 weeks to fight. I was fighting Yoshida in Pride.
Yeah.
And I just got fucking hammered for the 6 weeks. I just got fucking hammered like a dog. And that's all I was doing, getting fucking plastered.
Yeah.
And then I fought Yoshida and lost to him by an armbar, I think. But I don't think any of those guys that beat me those early days of Pride, they would not have a chance now. They not have a chance now, man.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of them would be training much at all. Can't think of.
I'm actually. I think I'm the last of the era of my era of fighters. So being the last of the Mohicans is pretty cool, man.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
Another reason why I think it's going to be awesome for me to take this challenge on a bare knuckle, because gypsy fighting for me is like, I think it's what I started with, and I'm actually built for that sort of jazz. I think it's an amazing fucking sport, and I think it's way better than because you know what you're getting. It's just you guys duking it out, baby.
Yeah, it is. It is. My friend fights for Bare Knuckle FC. He's had a few fights for them, and he was just saying that like the biggest thing is that they're still a bit like they're still not sure about the rules of like hitting down opponents. Sometimes people get DQ'd, but he also said that like he just loved the shorter rounds, the contact, the feeling. It's like a lot more painful, but the fight's so much quicker, and the pay is really good too.
It's right up my alley. So I said, I'm built for war with those sort of fights, to be honest. And it's hard to, I don't really cut up that easy, ever.
Yeah.
You got to take it. You got to pound me a lot to get any sort of cuts on this fucking face. So, yeah.
Yeah, you don't really have any scarring, Mark, on your, like, I can't
I
really see
do.
much.
I have,
but
these
not much.
These scars are not from fighting, These scars are from fighting, but those are before my actually became a pro fighter. So yeah, that actually helped me to move away from the other side of fighting. So yeah.
Yeah. With the bare knuckle thing, like, have you got an opponent in mind, or have you like in talks or
Well,
negotiations?
I'd love, yeah, I've been talking with the Big Mick Terrell, the champion. I mean, I'd
Okay.
love to, like I said, it's on Dave now. We're just waiting on Dave. We're just talking. Our manager Gabriel is
Yeah.
speaking with him. So if we can lock down a deal with Big Mick Terrell, the
Yeah.
champ, first fight in bare knuckle, man. To me, it's like I've been doing this sort of fighting, that sort of fighting before I even became a fighter,
Yeah.
to be honest. And I love to lock horns with them. I don't think they're in the same level as me.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I think they're fast and all that shit. But yeah, you can hit as much as you want, bro. I only need to get you one time, baby.
That's it. That's it.
Hit you. If I hit you one time, your face is coming off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add you. I will add them to my collection on my hands. I add them to my collection.
Well, it seems like it's the sport designed for you. Like
It is.
with
Like I said,
you know.
before I was a prize fighter, I was gypsy fighting. Right? Last time I had out there, I had someone's teeth stuck in my fucking hand. So
Yeah. So like, for you, it's going to be like a really easy transition. And you've been doing boxing. You had a few pro boxing fights before this as well. The Sonny Bill Williams fight and the Paul Gallen fight, So
I think I think the gypsy fight is different with the no gloves because you have to be a lot more accurate and
you've got smaller blocking as well. Like you got like a big glove to protect so much of your face,
Yeah, there's no gloves.
Yeah.
You can hit them with your hands, and it's just you got to be pretty precise, my friend. I've had like Gabriel's been talking to Ngannou's camp, but a few different people about different things. So, I mean, only the future will let you know what's going on. To be honest, so
could you fight him?
Well, when I first met Francis, he's the one that said to me, he's like this, "I want to fight you, Mark," and I said, "Sure, sure." Me, I'm like, "Oh, bro, you know what? Let's just take a photo, right? Let me take it. This is way before he was the champ. Way before the champ. So let me just take a photo. Let's take a photo, and then we can speak. You can call your dad Dana, or no, he's not there because he left the company. But you can call Dana and talk to him later about it. I said, but yeah, nice guy. Like I said, he was with I think Jerome Labana's camp, because he was French a long time ago. So I didn't realize
he was French. Yeah.
In the kickboxing days. So yeah, like I said, first time I met Francis, he's like this. Oh, I want to fight with you. I said, sure.
It's interesting because, Francis went from the UFC to fighting the best in the world in boxing and heavyweight and looks amazing. And I just think about you, Mark, like there's an opportunity there for you in heavyweight boxing still, and all these other avenues still. Just looking at that success.
One of the things I like about me coming back to fighting, although the reason I'm fighting is because I have to pay for this trial that's going to come up, the fact that me being at my age, at the last of my kind, that alone is an amazing accomplishment. If I can get a world title at my age, then I'd make history. Yeah. And if I can change contact sport with my lawsuit, that is making history. And the benefit is it helps a lot of other sports, men and women, in all genres can do it fairly without fucking these cheating losers taking shortcuts. And at the end of the day, the only difference between the UFC fighters and any top end fighter in the world is pay. And the reason we all know that's the reason why that reason is. I mean, and you can see that when Ngannou transitioned to do boxing, he was competitive. There's a lot of fighters out there like that, and the only thing like that is that made the UFC fighters look silly now that everyone knows about is the pay scale.
Yeah,
and because all the we all know where the money's going to. They're just ripping everyone off.
Yeah,
man, you got to get me started again talking toxic about this company again, man. And I don't want to. Don't get me started on them, bro. Okay. But yeah, like I said, we've got guys. The Rob Macy and them are in the Ali Act. They're trying to bring the Ali Act into MMA to make things fair. They've been trying for 10 years. They've got April, their lawsuit. We've got mine coming at the other end, coming hard. Yeah. I think I have my first filing in 2 weeks.
Okay.
My partner and I are filing our first filing today. Yeah. About unsealing a lot of the stuff, to be honest, about my crooked lawyers, Christina Denning and Brian Boshi. The stuff they've done with my lawsuit, they should not have a license. They
Okay.
should be ashamed of themselves, and they're a black eye to the American Law Society. So if you're in America and you want lawyers, don't use Christina
Yeah.
Denning and
Okay.
Brian Braschi. Those guys are criminals, just like the criminals they try to help.
Mm.
What's really exciting to me is like me venturing into bare knuckle, which is like something I started a long time ago, and being the last of my kind to get the world title
Yeah.
in bare knuckle. And that's for that alone is an accomplishment.
It will be marked for sure. Is there has there been any talks of anyone from like Saudi Arabia or any like other
Yeah.
other offers
You
there
asked
as
me
well?
that prior, but yeah, there has
Yeah,
been. Like
yeah.
Gabriel's been talking to them.
Yeah.
To Bahrain, Saudi, about a boxing fight. So, like I said,
Wow.
after I left the UFC, they said I said I'll do 6 fights, and I only done 2. I've only done 2
Yeah.
boxing fights. So, hopefully I can lock in a contract with bare knuckle with Dave to fight Big Mick and get 3 fights. I don't want to, blow him into the stratosphere, take that belt. I want to give that juggernaut Lorenzo Hunt a fucking beating, and then I want to fight whoever's after that. Maybe Ben Roth already punched his face in the UFC, but I'll punch it again.
Oh, yeah. Did you fight Ben Roth already? You've already fought him
in UFC, yeah.
Yeah.
But then do one more boxing fight, go from there. So
yeah, that'd be really good. Like I just think there's like a lot of opportunity, especially in Saudi Arabia and the bare knuckle thing as well, to make like a big payday.
But isn't that exciting times for the fighters coming through? When they see someone like me at my age, that's fighting, and they said he's still fighting. I mean, look at me and say, and pity and say, you look at me and say, bro, I'm young as fuck.
Yeah,
I can do that. Yeah. I can do that easy.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that at my age, and and see that it come through, and like I said, I probably feel this next contract will be the biggest one I get, and that says a lot. That honestly says a lot about the world and the way, especially a fighter can help others. I mean, you can do it. I mean, these young fighters are saying, I'm only 23. Yeah, all you got to do is watch out for injuries. So I've been lucky with injuries, but yeah, they can all do it too. It's a hard table to sit at, but if you're willing and able,
yeah, it's amazing. Like there's the amount of opportunities compared to when like you were sort of starting off. Like, but even for you just to go straight to K1 and to be a world champion without all that huge amateur experience and just from your own life, and then just coming into kickboxing. How old were you when you started kickboxing?
I had my first fight, I think it was 17 or 16.
And then you won the K1 at like 24, 25?
I won the world title at 27.
Wow. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then 22 years after that, winning the world title.
Yeah.
I'm about to go and compete. I'll probably be 50 when I compete again in bare knuckle, which is fucking amazing. Bare knuckles, whoosh. Right back to where I started.
How do you feel going back into training?
I don't like it. Training is hard. I've never liked training, but I'm not going to sit there and lie to you about it. But training has always been hard, especially for a big guy.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, man. Like I said, I mean, I do it because I love my family. I do it because I need to pay for this child. I do it because there's a fucking world title and history's calling me. History. Yeah. History's calling me, baby.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about your MMA career, Mark, with like some of your biggest fights. Like for me, I just think the one that stands out to me the most is that Stefan Struve fight. He's so bloody tall, and for you to like all the feints you're setting up to crack him, and like I still have memories of that. It's one of my favorite of your fights and the knockouts. Like, do you think he was like one of your biggest opponents you fought?
He was the tallest.
Yeah.
Well, actually, him and the difference with semi-short and Stefan Struve is that semi-short knew how to fight.
Yeah.
How to strike. Stefan Struve didn't know how to use his length and his height.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a guy that knocked out fucking Stefan Mirko. What's his name?
Mirko Krokop. No, not Mirko.
Stipe,
yeah. Yeah.
That's the guy who knocked out Miocic.
Yeah.
And Miocic pounded me into oblivion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I said, he's lucky I had the worst weight cut of my life. Otherwise, I would have pounded his ass. But you know what? Like I said, he was the tallest guy, like semi-short. But the
Yeah.
difference with him, I broke his jaw, but Semi Short back kicked me in the ribs.
Ah.
You know, because Semi Short, man, that guy was a monster at fighting K1.
Yeah.
Monster, bro. He knew how to strike. And because of his such big limbs, tall limbs, bro, he could fuck you up, bro, from way
Yeah.
back. I thought he was
Yeah.
actually in the middle of the ring when he spun give me the spinning back kick. I was like, nah, he won't get me from there. And then I
And
felt the sharp pain, and I was like, oh god, he got me.
he...
But yeah, with Stefan Struve, he didn't know how to use his height and length, and I mean, being such a young guy, I mean, if he could have just locked down all those techniques, man, he would have been a force, to be honest. But
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a
bro.
shame.
It's not my call, bro.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what it
true.
is, you know. So
That's true. What about like who do you think was like your other biggest like opponents ever made? Like was it like Fedor or Chikongo maybe or Lesnar? Like the biggest physical sort of people.
physical and strength wise, yeah, Brock
Yeah.
Lesnar was super strong.
Yeah.
Brock
Yeah.
Lesnar was, you know, because he was on all the gear, he was like stronger than anyone I've felt like. Like I said, I'm a really strong guy. I'm a really strong guy. But man, you know, this guy was, you know, I felt like he was far superior, stronger than I was, and he lifted me off my feet. He was just, like I said, because of all the sauce he was on. I don't think he'll be able to do that when he's clean. There's no way that like I said, I'm a strong person, man, physically, and bro, I don't think he'd be able to do that if he wasn't on gear. There's no fucking way. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just like his body was insane. He's a body, and he's like
I mean,
how
he
quick
didn't hit hard.
You know.
He
Yeah.
didn't hit hard, but his strength, bro. I was like, hey, he's fucking lifting me up my top touch. Hey, this guy. I was like, what the fuck? Well, I just wanted to hit him once in the fucking head, bro. Good.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it, bro. He just pretty much just smothered me and just kicked me down,
yeah.
and I was like, fuck. I was stuck, bro. I was like, fuck.
Was it similar with like the Overeem fight? Did he really feel insanely strong?
For that, no, the Overeem fight, he was just a cheater. I was so angry about that fight. I didn't want to do that fight. They forced me to do that fight. They forced me to do that fight, and I said I didn't want to do that fight. But they said to me, if you don't do this fight, we're going to fire you.
Oh, really?
So before that whole fight going in, I was like, man, I didn't even want to. You know, I was adding this to my lawsuit, and even that time they were outlawing IVs.
Yeah.
That guy had 2 IVs before the fight. I said, how are you guys allowed to? You said it's illegal to have an IV, but you guys give this IV because they said, because he got sick eating sushi. The fuck is that got to do with anything? You know,
eating
the fuck
sushi.
has that got to do with anything? These guys are criminals, bro. Honestly.
Yeah.
So that fight there, I didn't care about. You know, I did care about, but I didn't want to do the fight. But they forced me to do it. So I just added that to my lawsuit. He goes, you can't force me to fight a fight that I don't want to fight. These guys cheating. I asked you to put a clause in my contract, but you wouldn't do it. Now you're forcing me to fight. Otherwise, I'll be unemployed. These guys are criminals, bro. Fuck.
What about the Fatal fight? Did he feel particularly strong when you fought him?
I like Fedor. The thing about Fedor is like he's one of the best fighters ever. I think he's like the best fight ever. And it's hard to like I said, I liked him. I respect him as a person and as a man.
Yeah.
Really high. He's like one of and it's hard to fight someone like that when you respect him.
Yeah. He's a legend.
But yeah, he's like I said, he's I mean, I got if I knew a bit more jiu-jitsu, I might have got him with a Kimura, but he got me.
Well, you were getting him with was it with Kimura or Americano or something like that? Yeah,
America. But you know, like I said, I don't mind that. It's just hindsight. He's a great dude. He wanted to go drinking after, but you know, I'm like, it's kind of hard. You know, you just beat my ass. You want me to come drink with you? But that dude, Fedor, is one of the best dudes ever, man. Especially as a fighter, man. I respect that. You know, that guy, especially with his high IQ in his brain as fighter. Amazing.
Do you miss the Pride days and fighting in those like giant Japanese arenas, Mark?
I like I said, I had issues with Pride in the end. Same thing with K1. I had issues because they started talking about, you know, a lot of stuff happened, but in the end, I love fighting in Pride because they treated fighters properly, you know.
With Pride, did you know that there was anything like going on with the whole Yakuza thing? Do you have any idea?
It was public record, bro. It's public record.
So everyone knew about
it. It was not like public record, I mean, I think you just have to go online and Google that shit. I didn't know any of that. All I was doing was just fighting and making money and the rest of the politics stuff.
Yeah.
I try to stay out of, to be honest. Just stay out of, to be honest. But all that stuff that was in my book, been put in there was public knowledge anyway.
Yeah. Did they ever give like bags of money and stuff like that? There's the stories of people just like coming in a room and saying, "Oh, here's your bonus" or something like that. Here's the money,
Well, I've seen it myself. Funny, I was just walking to Sakakibara's hotel and I, Fedor walks past me and we just started talking and laughing, and then I went to see Sakakibara. He had like a whole table full of like stacks of bills, man, stacks.
Wow.
I don't know what it was. He's just he asked me if I wanted to get paid cash. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to take 450,000 USD? What am I, fucking dumb? I was like, nah, man, just wire me the money, bro. Fuck. I was like, fuck. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm sitting here. I wasn't thinking about criminal shit.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about getting paid, paying my taxes, living my life. I wasn't thinking about ways I can save money or whatever. I didn't know about any of that jazz.
Yeah. I have to bring up as well about like the Australian boxing corruption, because Ricky Hatton, when he came out to Australia, just said Australia is the most corrupt boxing nation in the world. That was his thoughts about it. I had some friends that have fought pro and amateur, and they just told me stories about people with fake scales and people taking dives and stuff like that. Mark, do you think Australia is one of the most corrupt places for boxing?
Well, I don't know. I've never been in the American boxing scene or the English boxing. All I've been is in my own home, like here in Australia. And like I said, the only experience I only speak on experience. I'm not going to say Australia is the most corrupt for boxing, because I don't know about the rest of the world. All I know is what happened to me is they try to pay me off. People would make me laugh. Is they said, this guy's lying about this. I was like, man, at the time I was living in Newcastle, I could have done with, it was actually $3 million.
Wow.
But at the time when they offered me that money, my mind was like this. It wasn't about the figure of the money. It was like, this guy trying to buy me up. What the fuck? My first thought is this guy's trying to put me in jail.
Yeah.
Because that's what that is. It's putting me in jail. And I was kind of really upset about that. I'm like this. But then I was intrigued about how does it work? So all these people I've been seeing on a couple of sites that people said, this guy's lying. I said, dude, I can tell you some things that I wouldn't. Why the hell would I want to sit here lying to you about something like this?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
What is the point of all that? I mean, it's that is just not me. I mean, there's one thing I'm going to do, especially with diving. I've never taken a dive in my fucking life, ever. And to be offered even if I was in Pride or Galen, they never offered me that shit.
Really?
No one did. Just because they were doing that shit, and then if they were, I wouldn't know about it because I never did it. And the first time I ever got offered money to take a dive was here in Australia, in my own home. So, like I said, it was more disappointing for me, out of disrespect, it was going to put me in jail. My first was, that's wrong.
Yeah.
The number of it was I could have done with it, especially going through a breakup, and
it's a lot of money.
And I was broke, I could have done with that money, but I had a lawsuit to pay for. But it's just not me, man. I'm like, I'd rather just, if I'm gonna lose or get knocked out, so be it.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's not like I can sit here and look at you in the mirror, and say, this is how I want to live my life. I don't want to sit here looking behind my shoulder. I'm not like that type of person,
Yeah.
And if I wanted to be it just makes me, it blows my mind how people think that I made that up.
No.
What the fuck?
No, they got no idea. This happens all the time in Australian boxing. From what I've heard,
but there's not just,
what I mean?
they talk about it happening in Pride or K1. I'm like this. Well, if it did, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
It didn't happen to me. And the reason it probably didn't happen to me because people think, why the fuck would they ask Mark? If one person's going to never take a dive, it's fucking that guy.
Be you, yeah.
There's no way in the fucking world,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. So Mark, you fought some, the best in the world in kickboxing. No, the best in the world in kickboxing and MMA. And which fights are you most proud of, or the most kind of stand out to you, where you fought through adversity and you were really happy with the result of how it went?
I'm the most exciting, the best fight I've ever had is the fight that I have right now, that I'm going through right now, is the fight against corruption, against the UFC, against Dana White, against Brock Lesnar. That's the best fight I'm having right now.
Yeah.
And I'm winning.
Yeah.
And I'm going to win this one, regardless whether they think I'm not going to win, regardless whether they've got the billions of dollars, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
I've won. I'm winning. I'm going to win. And what also is another fight that's exciting for me is also the fight that I'm going into now at my age, at 50, trying to grab a legacy as big as this, become the oldest to fight still at my age. And like I said, the reason I'm fighting is because I have to pay for this trial that's coming up.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when you got no money. You have to fight these crooked companies that they're throwing money at everything.
Yeah.
They throw money at your lawyers. It's just so hard. So but at the end of the day, if they think I'm quitting, there's no fucking way in the world that I'm ever quitting, ever.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about just want to know your thoughts about Alexander Volkanovski, right? There's still in the media saying that MMA is a barbaric sport, and it's just a shame. He's a world champion and also at a really, really high level. And I just want to know your sort of thoughts about society's view on fighting being in Australia specifically, thinking it's still a barbaric thing when it's considered one of the premier sports right now.
Yeah, sorry, I just someone calling. Yeah, that question about the corruption. Look, man, end of the day, what's corrupt is what's happening to is that company that's ripping him off. That's what's corrupt.
Yeah.
That title, like I told you, it's not a title that's worth anything. The UFC title is rubbish.
Mm.
End of the day, you see guys like Ngannou walk away from titles like that because they know it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
People are, like I said, from what I've seen, there's no successful fighter, especially if they got their title. Their title is just, it isn't worth the cow that died for it, to be honest. Especially when people look at how barbaric the sport is. The sport's not barbaric. It's the company that runs that sport is barbaric. It's that company that's cheating people, cheating these fighters in their lives and their families. That's what's barbaric.
Yeah. So, Mark, as well, there seems to be a lot of celebrities that are getting into MMA and jiu-jitsu now, all these big celebrity fights, which are, we're talking about for other fighters that can look up to that and go, oh, wow, this is a payday for me, this is a real big opportunity. I think there's rumors that you might even fight Jake Paul as well. Is that right?
Yeah, we were talking to the camp.
Oh, wow.
Gabriel was talking to them. But like I said, I don't know if he's the same weight, and I don't know if he wants to lock
be a tough fight for him.
Hands with me, because like I said, bro. Oh, dude, I'm a tough fight for anybody, to be honest. But if I'm trained while the head's on properly, bro, everyone's is in for a hard night, to be honest. But like I said, we'll see what happens with everything, to be honest.
So, just in terms of going back to about what you're doing with the community, you're doing a lot of stuff, and you've also talked about wanting to give back to the community and whatnot with children. And I just wanted to ask, is there anything specifically you want to work on in the future with business or anything else like that?
There is. I want to open, like I said, but I'm not gonna. I do want to open, but I'm not gonna speak on what it is that I want to do. But like I said, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I've got things I'm working on that I want to do, but first things comes first, which is just training and getting a work contract to fight bare knuckle. That's all I'm keen on, interested in, and closing off this lawsuit unless it goes to trial. So.
And Mark, do you have any advice for people aspiring to be fighters or going through tough times, to help them sort of push through? And a lot of people look to fighters to work out how to overcome, or as an example for them to kind of go things in life. Is there anything that you can kind of advice you can finally give to people about that?
Yeah, man. Some advice, man. It's never going to always be that dark or dark. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, man. You just have to keep persevering. Perseverance is huge. And like I said, there's not always going to be that dark tunnel that you're going to be in. the light at the end of the tunnel is always going to come. So, you never lose hope. It's all it is about, staying hopeful and looking to the future, because you can't change the past, but having hope,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
it.
thank you so much for that, Mark. I really appreciate your time. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the time, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks so much, Mark. Yeah.
This always shocks me, but only 10% of the people that regularly listen to the show are actually subscribed. Can I please ask for a quick favor? If you enjoy the show and what we do here, the best and totally free way to support us is just by hitting that subscribe button. And my commitment to you is that I'll bring you the best possible guests and the biggest stories every single week. Thank you.